Let's return now to our top story. Israel has ramped up precision airstrikes on northern parts of the Gaza Strip ahead of an imminent ground incursion into the territory. It comes as tens of thousands of Australians have gathered in capital cities across the country in support of Palestine for a second consecutive week. Joining me now live is Noura Mansour, one of the organisers of yesterday's Melbourne protest. Noura, I appreciate you joining us this morning. I want to ask you about the protests in a moment, but if we can start on the current situation over there and this imminent ground invasion. Obviously, things are getting very precarious. Do you accept claims that Israel has the right to defend itself from the terror group Hamas, and has it done what it can to give civilians in the region enough time to get out?
Thank you for having me, Danica. It's a pleasure to be here with you again on Sky News. We don't accept that Israel is doing what it takes or what is necessary to avoid civilian harm. We've seen reports from the ground that Israel has targeted hospitals that resulted in the killing of 500 people who were sheltering in the hospital. We've seen reports that Israel is targeting United Nations facilities, churches in the last couple of days, and mosques. Most recently, one of our community members reported 2 days ago that sadly, he's lost his sister and 3 children, 7 months old, 3 years old, and what would have been a 5-year-old little girl if she wasn't actually hit by an airstrike on her birthday. So this is, reports that we're getting from the ground, from civilians. We know that the people who are paying the highest price in this are civilians on both sides.
Yeah, and the loss of civilian life on both sides, it's absolutely tragic. Is Hamas, though, the key issue here?
Well, there's no Hamas in the West Bank. I mean, effectively in the West Bank, the Palestinian authorities in control of the West Bank, where there's even some level of security coordination with the Israeli government. Yet we have up to almost 300 Palestinians killed since the beginning of the year. There is no Hamas inside Israel, yet there's over 65 laws that discriminate against Palestinians who are also citizens of Israel. There's no Hamas in the diaspora, yet Palestinians in the diaspora are denied their right of return, a right that is internationally recognized. So, yeah, that's a little bit confusing for us. We all know that this dates back to, almost 100 years, 75 years of ongoing ethnic cleansing, apartheid, ongoing civilians basically being targeted.
Let's move on now to the rallies over this weekend. Of course, this is a second week in a row, and it was quite a large turnout across the country. Were you satisfied with the tone and how those who attended conducted themselves?
We were actually quite happy and pleased to see the kind of, the level of diversity of the crowd. There's children leading chants, there was families, elderly youth, Palestinians, and it's quite heartwarming to see that, in a second consecutive week, we've got a massive turnout, despite the weather in Melbourne being not so great. Yet people still kind of renewed their commitment and showed up in support of the Palestinian people and their rights to basically live freely and peacefully in their ancestral land.
Alex Rivchin from the Executive Council of Australian Jewry Co. He released a statement following the protests that weekend, accusing demonstrators of continuing to use coded anti-Israel sentiment. I just want to read you a quote. He says, "Their calls for the liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea is an unambiguous call for Israel's destruction, and the support of a new intifada is a call for the murder of more civilians." What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that from Alex. I think the calls for liberation, I mean, if a certain project exists, the premise of that project is the ongoing subjugation and in slavery of another people, then obviously the call for liberation of freedom becomes threatening to that project. But that raises the question about the legality and the morality of that project. So I think, once again, all the chants are focused on freedom, which is a basic human right, equality, also basic human right, and justice, global rights, global values of human rights. And these are basically the main chants that were echoed by supporters.
It was only 2 weeks ago, of course, the New South Wales government decided to light up the Sydney Opera House in the colours of the Israel flag. I'm not sure if you're aware now, the Sydney Lord Mayor Clover Moore is planning to block a proposal to fly the Israeli flag outside of Sydney's Town Hall. How would you respond to the position that Australian leaders have taken on this issue to date?
So I think, look, the community is quite devastated, and what's happening currently by international, law experts and some United Nations experts could amount to genocide. I think we need a response that is appropriate. We can't let that happen on our watch. I mean, I speak as a mother. I have 2 sons of my own. It's just devastating to see the amount of destruction, the injustice that's been happening and ongoing for at least 75 years. And this is why we keep finding ourselves in this position. We need a political solution that is sustainable. Currently, the situation is not sustainable. All parties involved are suffering. And the current, model of the state of Israel is clearly not working. So we need an alternative that provides equal rights in terms of justice and freedom and equality for all.